An announcement before we start the talk. Somebody reported this morning that on entering or going somewhat into the Northwestern Trail, which is the trail beyond the upper meadow, not this meadow, not the next one, but the uppermost meadow, entering the woods, and there is a sort of a loop, comes out the other side of the meadow. On that trail, he heard a very close shot and also heard voices, which means that hunters were very close. And just for everyone's information, that trail at some points borders directly with the neighbor's land. Please do not leave the orange vestia. Like, I always forget it, so I will remember it. But also, personally, I do not enter the woods these days. We have beautiful trails through the meadows, and particularly on that upper meadow, there's so many deer now. At least I've run into 2 large groups. So there is hunting activity around, and while I love the woods, during this retreat I'm enjoying the meadows with their distant views, or the driveway. Today, this snowy Thanksgiving Day, is the 5th day of the November 96, am I correct? Is this the 5th day? Yeah. 7-day retreat, November 96, 7-day retreat in Springwater. Toward the end of the last retreat, wasn't much time, I got a bit into this whole thing of ego, self, me. I don't recall what I said then, but quite a number of questions and comments have come up about it. Can we clarify at the outset that whatever is said here about the me network or self, I use the word ego rather infrequently, whatever is said about that is not said judgmentally, critically, with the implication this is something you have to get rid of, control it. None of that. This is not the essence of this work. The essence is to begin to observe, to question, to come in intimate touch with what we call the movements of the me, the self, the ego, the movements, the emotions connected with it, the defenses, self-protection, to observe it, to become intimate with it, to see it, to listen to it. And this listening, this observing, sometimes it is called witnessing, of me movements. I don't want this, I hate it. Resisting, reacting, defending, hurting, grudging. The observation, the witnessing of that is not part of the me, is not part of that network. The network cannot witness itself. It can think about itself, change itself, establish new behavior patterns. There's a whole psychological science called behavior modification through reward and punishment. Try to drop one trait to adopt a more sociable one. This is not what we're talking about. The seeing, the awareing of ego movement is not part of the ego movement. Please, if this is questionable to you or you don't agree with it, let's discuss it, let's talk about it, look at it, examine it together. In a talk like this, I can enter in on some of the uncertainties, but not all of them. The doubts or the different opinions or views. That is the function of coming together in a group or individually. So we can look and learn from one another. So, observing, awareing, self-defense, hurt, self-protection is not part of that me network. Where does it reside? I don't know. All I can say that it comes into operation, it functions when there's some opening in this network of self-absorption, self-concern. We're not saying that critically. It may sound this way because this is how one has heard it or feels about it, but this is not how it's meant. Because what we're critical and judgmental about, we cannot freely observe. Then there's already a wall coming up again, a resistance. So, where this awareness resides, I do not know, but it is in full shine, in full functioning when the network opens up or goes into abeyance. Or at least does not resent or resist being observed, non-judgmentally, non-nurturingly, non-supportingly, impersonal observation of ourselves in our day-to-day self-centered functioning. It's often what irritates us. We want this process to be accepted by ourselves and others, to be supported, not to be questioned. Because there's the idea, the assumption that our stability lies in this functioning of self, of meanness, ego, my needs, my wants, my fulfillments, my this and that. And yet, to shed light on it is such a marvelous thing, because as there is great attachment and investment of security in this, what we also call my personality, it's also our straitjacket. Needs to be constantly patched and maintained and repaired, upheld, protected, defended, projected toward others so that they will like me, so that they will not disapprove of me. It's a constant job, 24 hours. It continues into the dreams. So The other day somebody said, do you know this thing of spiritual teachers, including you, whatever you call yourself, of saying there is no ego, is just a lot of nonsense. There is. I just got a telephone call. I got all upset. Every trigger was pushed. Or everything was triggered. There is ego, said this person. No one denies the reality of our reactiveness, defensiveness, hurting, hanging on to memories, thinking we are these memories. Who denies it? But it's not the truth about ourselves. It's not our true being, this living in the personality network, even though if nothing about it is witnessed directly, awarely, it seems the only reality we have. And with that, our refuge as well as our burden. So as one does receive a telephone call, or maybe in the course of a retreat, a note about something one forgot to do at work or didn't do the way the work supervisor wants it done. And that may not be to coddle his or her ego, but because we have evolved certain ways here of working together in the kitchen. I've never been a kitchen supervisor, so I only get indirect reports from people. Some people feel they are reined in too closely and say, I have not received any note from this kitchen here, so this is past memory. Everything seems to be functioning notelessly. So, of course, maybe the first reaction, because one has listened to or read something that the ego is an illusion, the first reaction may be, of course it's no illusion, here it is. His ego and my ego, locking horns. But can one go beyond such I'm right, you're right relationships that have evolved over our lifetime and really begin to observe what is going on? And people who come to retreat are doing this. The retreat is so conducive to it. It happens, whether we want it or not. Out of this silence and the inevitable being with things that comes with it. Maybe an angry thought arising is clearly visible on the inner display. The angry thought, the physical accompaniment, which follows closely. And from the physical discomfort, more thoughts arising. And of course, thought weaving a web out of this incident, connecting with memories of past hurts or being criticized, being made feel inferior or humiliated. That happens, and it is watchable, observable. One can listen to it. The retreat with a lot of pooled awareness energy makes that possible. You could say, if you just think about this, if it isn't happening to you at this moment, if one just thinks about it, one could say, so what? So I see a jealous thought arising. What of it? I know I'm jealous. I know all human beings are jealous. It's natural. But it is a difference like day and night between knowing that we are jealous and thinking about it, reacting to it one way or the other, and It's coming into the light of day. Here it is. And the difference is that there is light of day, awareness. That's the difference. Then this whole thing is light, not a dark reality of the known, but a light revelation, if you will. It's something seen. And if the awareness isn't immediately snowed over by reactiveness, the network reacting against itself, bringing up the jealousy and the reaction to it. And the absorption in that, then awareness is overlaid, a blanket of snow or dark clouds, whichever metaphor fits better. But if awareness remains, then the reaction and all of the stuff that comes up so habitually and is so absorbing and involving of our energies comes to light and becomes light in the process, flexible. It can wither, and the awareness stays, awareness taking the place of this tied up energy, jealousy or anger, hurt, sadness. Not that these emotions are wrong or shouldn't have come up. That's wasted energy to think that way. Here they are. Can they be seen? The birth, flowering, maturing, and death of an emotion, of a thought. Watched carefully, non-judgmentally. And what is mentioned so often, well, I watch it, but it doesn't go away. It hangs in there, it goes on. Well, is there still this initial awareness of this thing arising, this sentiment or feeling? Or is it now strongly intermingled with thinking about it, storying about it? That needs to be seen, observed. And maybe the question naturally arising, do I have to make a story, or does story have to keep running about this incident? It's so nice in my relationship with Kyle. We've been together now for almost 50 years. And we have a very exhaustive communication with each other. Tell each other pretty much everything that's happened and going on. Sometimes at great length, sometimes at short length. And times when I come home from the center or from anything else, doesn't have to be the center, something has irritated me, I tell him. And more recently, he may say, do you have to tell me that? It's a wonderful cut-through. This urge to tell somebody, to share with a person, and stopping for a moment, realizing it's not necessary. So we can ask ourselves, do I have to keep telling myself this story? And the momentum from habit, however old we are, 50 years, 70 years, or 40 years habit, the momentum is there to continue and to have a listener. If no outside listener, then I got to listen to my own stories, be my own best supportive audience. And maybe from talking about it in this way, or in meetings, together with friends, from talking, maybe something is left over that will pop up at a moment. I'm dialoguing with myself about what happened to me. And do I have to go on with it? Does this have to continue? And it is sort of like putting a brake into something that wants to keep running. But awareness is more than a brake. It sheds light. It sheds intelligent light on the whole thing. And at this moment there is more to it than needing to go on with an impulse. There's more to it than that. There's also the quietness of being there with a whole situation, which one may not, in one's irritation or upset, may not have perceived at all. The whole situation, the other person, the conditions under which this thing arose, with this break and awareness remaining, all of this suddenly comes into play, into a new light of understanding, including oneself. Oneself is not subtracted from all of us. One is an equal part in the total situation, which also includes the meadows and woods, clouds, sun, rain, snow and ice. So when we sort of complain, well, I'm seeing it, I'm watching it, but it keeps on going. Let's shine the light on this keeping on going, a fresh light, not rely on the fact that there was some awareness a while ago or some attentiveness. Because now it may have transmuted in just trying to vent feelings, or not that one shouldn't vent feelings, please, I'm not saying this, we're just shedding light. It's no longer the seeing and listening, but another habitual process running, which can come into fresh attention. And there are times, maybe most time, when the habits are so powerful of going with the fear, going with the desire or the sadness, that they, at this point in time, will not be stopped. But it doesn't mean there cannot be some accompanying looking and listening and learning from this whole thing. Learning about ourselves, which is learning about each other. Because when the other is on something that he cannot stop right now, and I'm there watching, will one judge, condemn, or will there be some deep understanding? And out of this deep understanding, which is a deep, motionless listening, not for or against, motionless, maybe one's listening presence or a response coming out of that listening presence may open a door for this so-called other person. I think that's really the only way we can truly be of help to each other, by really being there, listening, not judging, not imaging, or seeing the images that are getting in the way to listening. Images of, I know this person already, or I know these arguments, and then reacting from the known. That's not helping. It's just reinforcing what is going on. And what is going on is lack of understanding. So if one is here on day 5, wondering whether this barrage of thoughts will ever end, and how does one wonder? Is that already a weighted criticism? A weighted comparison with what one has read about people on day 5 in the retreat, that the mind begins to slow down. And the static from that comparison joins the rest of the static, creates conflict, maybe depressive feelings, or wanting to give up this whole thing. Why come here? And yet, maybe unbeknownst to oneself, one can't really put one's finger on this. There is this observation and witnessing going on of the static, of the depressive state. Because if there wasn't any awareness, how could one talk about it, report about it? Our problem is that in becoming aware of something from years and decades and lifetimes and eons of conditioning, we are preoccupied or occupy ourselves with the object of observation. What it is that I am becoming aware of. The constant thoughts or this underlying anguish people report, sitting in there, sort of a layer of subtle anguish. Doesn't go away, it's there. Watch it, be with it. No need to fight anything. What we fight creates resistance, and resistance is more static, more physical, conflicting, intensing. So this inevitable witness that a retreat brings with it, even though the mind says, well, all I see is all this old garbage, which seems to take no end. Why not switch, I don't know, if it's possible, with just talking about it. But it is possible to happen, a switch from that which is being observed to this observation itself, which is colorless, substanceless. It's very, very subtle. But it's there. It goes on unknowingly. So, time again, as awareness comes not only of the garbage, I'm just using this word, it's used very frequently, not only awareness of the stuff, but the fact that there is awareness, and staying with that rather than getting all involved with reactions to the stuff. It's entirely possible. Maybe not for long periods of time, because the habit is so strong to get involved with stuff, carried away, identified, attached, fighting it, resisting it. And then again, awareness of this bundle of happenings, and staying with the awareness, and the fan blowing, the breath flowing. That's the beauty of this. Listening to breathing, to sounds around one. Here and there a bird, maybe wind or ice particles hitting the roof. Not as an escape. The escape is dealing with the stuff. Escape from just being here. In a fresh way, in an innocent way. Of not judging, breath as, oh, this old breath. So what? I hear it. Not knowing it, not remembering it, but feeling it, experiencing it fully. And no need, somebody brought this question up, it's come up twice. What's the difference between concentration and awareness? I'm not advocating anyone concentrate on the breathing, even though this is how one may have been trained and this is what one may be doing, which is up to each person. But I'm not advocating it. We can talk about it. Why not? As we did in one meeting. What all goes into concentrating, because there has to be the agent, the doer, the concentrator, and the willpower. That comes out of this network of doing something, learning and doing it better. And very likely an eye out for the results. Am I concentrating well now? But aside from those things which can also come into awareness, am I doing well with my awareness? Apart from those aspects, in concentrating and really trying to concentrate on the breath, and the breath only, because that is the essence of concentrating, one thing, and the rest becomes a distraction. And what does one do with distraction? The learned reaction is to fight them, to control them, to use concentrating on the breathing to fight listening to other things, to cut it off. Well, one has to watch for oneself, what one has learned or what one is doing. So, this listening to breathing, which is not a regimented, willed affair. It is the most marvelous thing permeating this organism. Breath. Breath. All over the body. The whole body is breathing, not just the nose, or the diaphragm, or the lungs. This is idea directed. If one comes up with such statements. So, listening to this unregimented mystery of the body is not an exercise. It's just being intimate with something that is taking place every moment of our life. Being there with it in a new way, not using this for the sake of that. Not using, concentrating on the breathing in order to become, I don't know what one all wants to become, or be, or attain. These are all ideas. But the breathing and the quiet listening is not an idea. It's something that's happening right now. No matter what thoughts swirl around it and try to capture it and abstract it. And that can be seen also as the breathing is felt. The desire to think about it. And the other sounds. The words about the other sounds, yes, very habitual, although sometimes people ask me this, is it ever possible to hear something without the need to label it, to know it, to react to it? And the answer is yes, it is entirely possible for there to be simple, pure listening with the labeling program in abeyance, and with that the reacting program, the evaluating program.
rationally possible. How to attain it? Where does that question come from? I want that. It happens. It happens with taking this work dead seriously. Even though one may begin or may have begun just playing with it, which is all right too. So right now, where are we? Right now, this moment. Not where should I be, or where does she want me to be? Right now. The fanning, the breathing, the sensations. The thoughts? Maybe yes, maybe no. It doesn't matter. It's all encompassed in one listening. We will end here for today.